All right, so we have tonight a really awesome, I think, awesome and exciting topic, a necessary topic, and that is bookkeeping for your home care agency. So, and I want to just say before I go into introducing Jess that I'm happy too to have my mom here tonight. So, my mom, Charlene, is here and she's done all of our financial stuff for our agency forever. And because I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I had been like thinking about how I wanted to have somebody come into our space and talk to us specifically about bookkeeping and somebody with just the knowledge and the approach and all the things. And like I was thinking this solid for like a good 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, Jess popped into my email and was like, Hi, I'm Jess, and I'd like to teach about bookkeeping. I'm like, Oh my gosh, what else can I manifest? Um, so it was really cool. And then we met online, and actually, we both are here in Maine. So that's really cool that we have that same connection. And she has a background in home care, in compliance, and as well as in bookkeeping, and is here to teach us some of the ins and outs and then provide space for questions and answers at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jess now.
Again to Bethany for inviting me here today, and happy to join you all. From my conversation with Bethany, it sounded like you all just like really love bookkeeping. It's certainly a topic that we could spend days on easily. But for the sake of time, I did keep this presentation really focused on the basics. And I also wanted to give you all things that you could walk away and like implement today. I am a firm believer that every business owner should know just enough bookkeeping to be dangerous. Whether you do the books yourself or you outsource, it's really important that you understand the numbers, you understand the signals that your numbers are giving you. And I like to think of it like running your car, right? You're not rebuilding the engine, but when the oil light comes on or that tire pressure light comes on, like it's time to act, right? You need to do something. And so I believe your books work the same way. And there's a few, key numbers that are going to help you know, if you're healthy or if you're headed for trouble. Um, so that's the direction I'm going to go in here with you all today. So what we'll cover is what is bookkeeping, why we do it, how we do it, and including our system options, the right setup and routine, and then also using numbers to make decisions. Okay, so let's dive in. What is bookkeeping? So the simplest definition that I could come up with here is recording transactions. That's it. Bookkeeping is the recording of all financial transactions of a business. And from there, we're doing a lot with the numbers afterwards, but the bookkeeping itself is just the recording of transactions. And I felt it was worthwhile to talk about what bookkeeping is not also. So with that said, bookkeeping is not running payroll, calculating paychecks, filing payroll taxes, that's all payroll or HR function. It's not doing income taxes or giving tax advice. That's going to fall under an accountant or a tax pro. It's not submitting claims or billing payers. That's going to be a billing or a revenue cycle management function. It's not chasing claims or doing appeals. Again, that's going to be under your revenue cycle management. Bookkeeping's not approving what to buy or paying bills without owner okay. That's going to be like a management or accounts payable type process. And it's not building budgets or cash flow forecasts. Those tasks are really going to fall under the purview of a chief financial officer or you as an owner. So again, bookkeeping, simply recording financial transactions. So let's talk about why we do it. First of all, for legal requirements, every business is required to keep records in one form or another. So we can't get around that. Management and operations. So this is a big one. Bookkeeping helps us determine how the business is doing, right? And it supports decision making. And technically, bookkeeping it's a record of the past, but we can actually use it as a tool for the future. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. When you don't have clear or organized books, you're flying blind. You're probably missing out on deductions. You might be making guesses or decisions based on guesses, um, which can ultimately kind of hold you back and hold your agency back. And the last bucket is taxes, everybody's second favorite topic behind bookkeeping. So, good bookkeeping will lead to accurate filings and overall reduce your tax liability. And of course, lead to a happy accountant, which is always nice. All right, so how do we do it? So your system options. So your bookkeeping system is the backbone of your business finances. And the right choice really depends on your preference, your agency size and complexity, on how many services you're offering, and your long-term goals as well. So for example, if you want something that is simple and free or low cost, you can start with a spreadsheet. That is totally fine. Google Sheets or Excel. And I will, throw out there though, keep in mind that a spreadsheet is going to be mostly manual entry. And it will be limiting as you grow, but it's a great place to start and to get to know bookkeeping and get to know your business finances. With that, I do have kind of an example I wanted to show you. So this is a screenshot from my own bookkeeping spreadsheet template, and this is something that I'll share with you all. So it's super straightforward. I think sometimes people can get a little scared with Excel because it's just like a bunch of boxes, but there are ways that we can format it so it's a little easier on the eyes and just user friendly. And depending on your comfort level as well with Excel and Sheets, you can build in, formulas to kind of help auto-populate some things that would be helpful, etc. So here is just a quick snapshot of, what that could look like. Now, if you want efficiency and you want automation and something that's going to grow with you, that's where you really want to choose a bookkeeping software. There are many options out there. QuickBooks Online, also known as QBO, Xero, and FreshBooks are some of the popular options. QBO is considered the industry leader, and there are other options beyond these. They do tend to kind of specialize in certain areas like invoicing or inventory management, for example. QBO is going to offer you the most robust experience, in my opinion, and I'm not an affiliate. It's just where my preferences lie, and specifically QuickBooks Online as well. And then I wanted to share just a quick screenshot of a screen within QuickBooks Online for you. This might look familiar to some folks. This is specifically the transactions area. And so what QuickBooks Online does for you is you're entering your bank account. So for example, you've got a checking, a savings, and a credit card, and it's pulling down your bank feeds in real time. So as money comes in, as money goes out, it's all being funneled right onto this page. And so your transactions are going to be listed down here. And so there's a lot less manual entry, there's a lot more automation, and it does also have the power to kind of learn as you do more and more bookkeeping. So for example, it's going to start to recognize, this utility expense, from Central Maine Power is coming out every month. I know where to attach that. I'm going to categorize that under utilities. And then there's just less clicking that you'll have to do to actually record that transaction. It even offers the ability to set rules up so that it will do all of that without you touching it at all. So again, there's a lot more kind of automation options, which is going to increase your efficiency when it comes to software. So those are your options, and ultimately you want to choose a system that's going to save you time, that's going to keep you compliant, and help you make smart financial decisions. So choose whatever is going to help you achieve that. Okay, so let's talk about the right setup. So first and foremost, I cannot stress this enough. You must keep your personal and your business finances completely separate. There's lots of risks that come with commingling finances, tax headaches, not being able to track your deductible expenses, increasing taxable income, throwing up a great big red flag for the IRS. There's just a lot of risk there. And just in general, struggling with disorganized books and not being able to tell what was business, what was personal, not knowing if your business is actually making money or losing money. So, long story short, separate personal and business. Now, your chart of accounts. So, your chart of accounts is a list of all of the categories and the accounts that you use to categorize your financial transactions. So you can think of a chart of accounts like a filing system for your finances. And with this filing system, we really want to strike a balance with the total number of accounts that you have, as well as the level of detail of the accounts. So, for example, if it's too simple, it's not going to give you enough insight. For example, say you had a couple of folders, one income and one expenses. You're gonna know that money came in and you're gonna know that money went out, but you're not gonna know where or why. So it makes it really hard to see patterns. And for example, like how much you're really spending on marketing versus software. On the flip side, too detailed is just going to result in paralysis. If you create a folder for, every tiny thing, like Facebook ads, Instagram ads, LinkedIn ads, you'll overwhelm yourself. Reports are going to start getting noisy as well. It'll be difficult to stay consistent with your categorizing as well. And you'll probably end up wasting a bunch of time nitpicking over, $10 charges. So we really want to hit that sweet spot, which will set you up to be decision ready. So, for example, instead of the 10, accounts for ads, you might just use a marketing and advertising category. And if you really want the granular data and you want to know what you're spending in each platform, then go ahead and go right to the platforms. In that particular example, the platforms offer a lot of options in terms of reporting on ad spend. There really is no magical formula to the chart of accounts, and sometimes there is some trial and error to get to the most helpful and balanced one for you and your agency. In the end, you just want enough categories to give you useful insights, but not so many that it becomes a burden to maintain. The next piece is around routine. So how do you actually do this in practice? And I want to break this section down into two different pieces. One being a do-it-yourself routine, so you're doing your own bookkeeping, and then one for an outsourced routine. And yes, just because you outsource bookkeeping doesn't mean you're completely off the hook. So let's start with do-it-yourself. So all you really need to do is commit 15 minutes a week. Put it on your calendar, make it a must have every week for yourself. And this time is going to be dedicated to these four items. So the first thing is storing your receipts and invoices. Ideally, this is something that you do in the moment, but we know that's not always a thing. And if you commit to at least doing this once a week, you're going to be in a really good spot. The second item is sending and following up on invoices. Now, if you're using software, this piece, the follow-up, is going to be automated for you. You won't need to touch that step. But this is what's bringing in the money, right? So you want to make sure that is being touched weekly. And then you're recording and categorizing your income and expenses. And kind of tying in with the chart of accounts, the key here is to be really consistent with your categorizing. And that way you're not having, a utility expense, for example, bop around in different categories across your chart of accounts, because that can get confusing when we look at reports. And then lastly, review cash flow. And this can be a quick review. So cash flow is one of the biggest reasons small businesses fail, is a lack of cash flow. You can be super profitable, but if you don't got the cash, then it's not going to work. And so this is something that is always worth looking at. You know exactly where you stand at any given time, which is going to give you the power to make adjustments as needed, rather than kind of getting to the end of the month and being like, oh no, I only have a week's worth of cash. So look at that regularly. Now let's talk about a monthly routine. And this is something that will, in terms of time commitment, will fluctuate, depending on the size of your agency, of course, but also the more you do this, the faster it's going to get for you. And so I'm throwing up 60 minutes. I think that's probably a good estimate. And so this is going to include bank reconciliations. So at the end of the month, when you get your statement, from your checkings and your savings account and your credit card or whatever accounts that you have, you're cross-referencing and making sure everything that's on that bank statement is in your books. This also gives you kind of a second opportunity to make sure that everything is categorized correctly. If you're using a spreadsheet, this will be a helpful way to catch any manual errors or entry errors. You'll also, you could find that there are things on your bank statement that are not in your books. And so this is just a really good practice every month. Do this reconciliation, and then you feel confident that everything's there. Your balances match, your books balance matches your bank account balances. Um, and you also find too that like a common thing that pops up on a bank statement that's not in your books are bank fees. And it might just be like $1 or $3 or maybe $10, but that adds up over time. And then all of a sudden you've got, kind of this gap of in balances. And so this, again, this process is going to help you catch those things. And review your reports. So we'll talk a little bit more about reports in a bit, but this is really where your numbers turn into things that you can actually use, is in these reports. And if you're using a spreadsheet, that's gonna, how you pull those reports is gonna look a little different than if you're using software. For example, software, you're going to click a few buttons and you're going to get a report, versus a spreadsheet. You might have to do some copying and pasting and manipulating of data, but it's possible. You can still get those reports. Calculate profit margins and cash runway. So these are a couple of numbers that I find very, very important. And again, we're going to talk more about this in a bit. And similar to looking at cash flow, these are numbers that you want to know. They're going to help you understand the financial health of your business and know, for example, cash runway. How many days of cash do I have? That I can keep the lights on, without changing anything. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. And then planning ahead. So we want to plan for next month's revenue and expenses. So this is really important, and the reports and your calculations are going to help you plan as well, and just make sure that you have an idea of what's expected to come in, what's expected to go out, and are we in a good cash place to handle that? Okay, so let's talk about a outsourced books routine. So outsourcing doesn't mean eyes closed. It might mean hands off, but you want to have eyes open here. So you're going to see a few duplicate things. So for example, review your reports. Most bookkeepers, if they're only doing bookkeeping, they're going to prep and distribute the three main reports, and those are going to be your profit and loss statement. It's also called a income statement, which tells you, are you profitable? There's a balance sheet, which tells you how much your business is worth. And then you have a cash flow statement, which is telling you where your cash is going. And so it's really going to be up to you, again, to kind of dig into those reports and review them, and make sure that you kind of understand, the numbers and kind of what's going on. Now, these reports don't necessarily give you a look into your profit margins or your cash runway. So again, I've got this calculate profit margin, the cash runway. So you can do this yourself, or you can find a bookkeeper too that can offer these services as well. And I do have a tool that I'll show you in a bit that does this for us. And then again, we have planning for next month's revenue and expenses. Again, just staying ahead and kind of knowing exactly where you stand at any given time. And staying in contact and asking questions. So, and staying in contact meaning kind of answering questions from your bookkeeper. They might need clarification about some transactions. They might need documents from you. But then the other way around, you want to make sure that you're flagging, changes to them, like big purchases or new loans, stuff like that, and asking questions. So take advantage of having a professional manage your books. And good questions to ask your bookkeeper is what's changed. For example, this month from versus last month, and why. Are there any anomalies or risks that I should know about? Also, who are our top 5 late paying customers, or our top 5 vendors by spend, for example, our biggest expenses? And what can we do to help both of those? Are we on track for estimated taxes and owner's pay? So again, these are all good questions that you can ask your bookkeeper, and you want to take advantage of their expertise for sure. So last but not least, I do want to offer you all a few things here, and exclusively for HCA members. So first and foremost, a free QBO setup. So if you're not using software yet, and you're ready, or you want to switch to QBO, send me an email of interest and we'll set up a time to connect. So Jess at sdbookkeep.com. And then I also want to offer you all access to my Summit Learning Hub. So this hub is chock full of resources and tools. If you liked this presentation, you found this helpful, I have a whole nother bookkeeping blueprint course in the Learning Hub. It talks a lot about what we talked about today and goes into a little deeper into some other topics. Hopefully this will help you, along your bookkeeping journey. And to get access, just go to sdbookkeep.com/learn. And it's just a form. You give me some contact info and it will send you an automatic email with a link to access the Learning Hub. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to connect. I'm happy to help. If you're interested in exploring outsourcing, let's talk. Also, check out my LinkedIn and my Facebook pages. My handles are down here. I post lots of educational material, insights, resources, tools, and that also might be helpful.